This week on Induction Noise. Andre gets involved with a police chase.
Right. And it was so quick that the chopper couldn't keep up.
I give some relationship advice.
You're never going to know your car more intimately than being elbows deep in it.
And Niku asks the tough questions.
We've been torturing people here.
Right, well, hi guys, and welcome back to Induction Noise. We are once again here at the fantastic G&A Promotions with our good friend Gunter. I am Mr. Q, with me as always.
Sorry, Gunter, can you just say how you would pronounce your surname? Because I've always written it, but I've never actually said it.
I'm not sure either. It's Drotschie.
Drotschie.
Yeah,
Gunter Drotschie,
yeah,
there we go.
yeah.
Sorry.
That's what I said.
Mr. G.
With me is Andre,
How's it?
and at the end there, Nico.
How's it? You gotta twist it up, man. You gotta twist it
ignore
up.
that.
Keep him guessing.
Yeah.
Look, I know in the first season I was going on about how I always open the episode exactly the same way. So when I started editing all the episodes, I noticed that I always go exactly the same tone. Hi guys, and hi guys, and hi guys. I started sounding like Shmi. I wanted to kill myself. I think let's just stick with a hello or a good evening. Or a hi.
So,
This is what the Jag people say.
Yeah, this is the Jag people.
Yeah.
The non-conformist alpha Jag people.
Yes.
Anyways, moving on. Gunter, you've pretty much raced anything with wheels. And four wheels. Stick to four. You at least had the good sense to do that. But racing tends to be sort of regarded as a slightly dangerous pursuit.
Really?
To spend your time on. And I can't remember who it was, but one of these Formula One drivers as well, he said, you know, you're not a racing driver unless you've had a couple of crashes. It's kind of like a rite of passage, because when you're pushing that hard, shit happens. Have you had any sort of memorable shunts that kind of made you think twice about what it is that you spend your weekends doing?
I think I've been very fortunate in not having very big crashes. I think my biggest crash was probably in karting. I had a flip upside down, and it was back in the
not fun.
early 80s when we raced with methanol. And upside down, and the fuel ran out. I was lying on my head, and the fuel ran out onto my leather karting suit, into my helmet and in my nose, and I actually knocked me out. So
wow.
but yeah, that was
drowned
probably
in fuel.
yeah, and
Sure.
yeah, methanol is not the healthiest
It's
thing
not
in
good
the
for
world
you.
to get in
It's
your
not good
system.
to drink it. Sure.
But it does explain the obsession since then.
Probably yes. Yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
funnily
ladies
enough-
and gentlemen, we have a real petrolhead.
I don't know if it was the methanol, but the heat off that with a bit of bending and twisting, we fixed the car and actually broke the lap record in the next heat. But I think I maybe forgot to brake somewhere along the line or something.
Maybe you should be tested for performance enhancing.
Yeah. That was back in the 80s, yeah. But I can't really think of anything barring the normal shunt here and there and a
Finger
dent, and but nothing really, really serious that I've flipped and written cars off. I'll
awesome.
probably tomorrow morning wake up and go, shit, you know, I don't. There was that one, you know. There was that one, yeah. But no, nothing. I've managed to escape all of that, fortunately. So been some close calls, but yeah,
It wouldn't be racing if you weren't.
exactly,
Awesome.
yeah.
Hey guys, just a quick shout out and thank you to our sponsor for this episode, Master Panelbeaters. If you have any kind of bodywork, paint work, any kind of fixing that needs doing to your car physically, go check them out. They're on Facebook. They've got a website as well. Master Panelbeaters, Montague Gardens, run by Stephen and his incredible team of magicians. do yourself a favor as well. Go and listen to the last episode of season 1 of our podcast. And listen to the story particularly about Stephen fixing up an enthusiast's Camaro that he thought was dead, but Stephen and his team brought it back. It's a really good story. Go and listen to it, and you'll know exactly the kind of people that you're dealing with at Master Panelbeaters. So thanks again to Master Panelbeaters, and let's get back to Gunter.
Do you think that the sort of danger element of racing kind of led you down the path that you're on today with all of the sort of equipment and stuff that you sell, or
No.
is it more just a means to an end to get to the racing rather than a passion for the safety of it? It's more the racing that's the real sort of driving factor.
Yeah, I mean, I still believe that, race drivers, if you've got all the right equipment, kind of all going in the same direction, more or less the same speed, especially if in a dice with someone. It's probably worse going 50 kilometers an hour down Food Tracker Road and a taxi coming the opposite direction.
Yeah. And I think more importantly also, everybody's behaving in a more predictable way.
Yeah.
If you're rational and you are able to race, you are going to go for gaps. You're going to do certain things.
Yeah.
You're not going to go the opposite way. And,
No. And Andrew, you'll know, with racing, as you get exposed to it, suddenly when you're on the road, you become this reserve driver. And you notice stuff that you never notice, and that's the big thing with race drivers, So because of what they experience and quick movements and decisions, that you end up being on the road and you'll notice, you're sort of thinking for the other driver, there's no way he's going to stop, so I'll stop, and then you avoid accidents because you're a race driver and you kind of tone down on the road. But you just become a better driver, So.
Yet if you ask an insurance company, they'll tell you the opposite.
Yes, absolutely, they will. But it's actually not the case. I believe that. I believe that race drivers are normally, maybe when there's a bit of an alcohol-induced moment, you might want to show off. But normally race drivers are quite reserved on the road and know the pitfalls, So.
There are exceptions, but I think that's true. Since I started racing the first time, you get your fix on the track.
Absolutely.
You drive something at 10 tenths on the track. On the road, you don't feel the need to break any records or see how quickly you can get from this point to that point because there's a place for it. But I think people who are not exposed to racing, that have that kind of in them to be a racer, they don't have anywhere else to experience that. So they'll try and make a racetrack off the road, and that's not a good thing.
Never the surface.
So get on track and start
racing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And surprise yourself how difficult it is. People have a misconception, but I'm fast. I'm a good driver. Well, come to a track day and show
the moment
us,
you say that you are a good driver, you are probably not.
Yeah, exactly.
In my experience, I have to be brutally honest. Everyone who said, because I don't know if you know this, but my day job is basically selling supercars. And you get guys coming in and they go, "Oh, don't worry, I know how to drive." That's like alarm bells going off right there. It's like, if you think you know how to drive, I know that you can't drive. Because every single guy that I've ever spoken to who I thought, geez, this guy's an amazing driver, the first thing he'll tell you is, "Oh, I'm not very good." And
I'm not the best driver or whatever.
I mean, there's this whole sense of there's a different level that these oaks operate on, and I'm not there yet. And I'm good enough to know that I'm not there yet. But these oaks are so useless that they don't even know that they don't know.
But the thing is, I think if you're a racing driver, you actually understand to an extent what's going on. You understand this weight transfer, you understand these things. A person who's just, I'm getting in my BMW and I'm driving fast because I went 180 on the highway.
No seat of your pants
but they have no understanding of what's happening. 100%. I went around the corner at 140.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What happened there?
And not just that, but I mean, guys who haven't been to a track and driven to the limits of what their car is capable of, 9 times out of 10, they don't have any idea what their car is actually capable of.
Yeah.
Which means when they get into an emergency situation, they've got no idea how that car is going to behave if they were to give it steering input or braking or accelerate or whatever. They've got no idea what the car is going to do.
Have to hope that electronics will save them, which these days is probably...
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's pretty much a given. But so... something that I've been saying is that in Formula One today, we don't see the characters, the big personalities. You know, these guys are robots. They're programmed to get in the car and drive, and that's it. That's all they do, and they're exceptionally good at it. But we don't have those characters and
back in the 70s, and
exactly.
the 80s Formula One drivers were.
When you were racing, I mean, you were racing with the legends in South Africa. Who, I mean, these are the guys you want to sit around a campfire with.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you sat around the campfire with them.
Yeah, we did. We've had many camps. I think I was fortunate where, that the age we being in my 50s now, I got to spend time with the older guys who were either at the end of their career or had stopped and gave advice and gave tips. And that was great. And a lot of the new guys now, the new generation, have no idea who XYZ legend is walking down pit lane.
Swanepoel or a Peter Koch or whoever.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's actually quite sad. I mean, and that's just time happens. The older people pass away. But there's this whole sort of era of stories that's just disappearing. So, and the characters, the way they used to do things, just completely differently. And you tell people stories, and you can see halfway in the story you're going, this guy thinks I'm bullshitting. I mean, this is not real. This can't be. So I mean, there's so many stories. I mean, with Sarel and Koos and Bob Althoff, and these were all friends of my dad and me growing up as preteen and into my teens. Hanging out with these people, and so I mean, the stories about sitting in Bobby Althoff's house in Johannesburg with a hammer and knocking Parlemoen because we're going to have the Parlemoen steaks in the pan tonight. He's sitting again, and he's walking. Just Bob Althoff sitting next to you with a hammer, eating a Parlemoen. So it's just things that you experience that money can't buy. And stories and specifically Koos and Bobby. I mean, they had the most unbelievable stories. Koos was, I think, 64. He was a South African saloon car champion. And part of the prize, the amazing part, 1964, that everyone that won a championship with a Ford brand car, a country championship, they flew to Cortina in Italy, the town, and spent, I think, a week. Cool. It was a massive gala dinner, prize giving. Jim Clark, actually, there's a photo, Koos still got, Jim Clark presented him, Koos, with a stopwatch.
Wow.
And I'm trying to think, Paul, what is the guy's name from Australia? Was it Paul Hawkins, I think? All these famous Ford guys, and then they on one of the days, they went to a bobsleigh track, and they had two brand new Lotus Cortinas. And the BBC was there. And the BBC was going to film this. And Koos said, well, what's going to happen? So, well, we're going to go down the bobsleigh tracks with these Cortinas. And Koos looked at it and said, but you might as well put a monkey in the seat because you can't steer. You've got no brake, accelerator, steering. Nothing can work going down a bobsleigh track with a Cortina. And he said, once he had figured that out, he said the first thing he did was, just went through the alphabet. Clark is C, Hawkins is H, S is Swanepoel. So he'll be, by the time they call his name, there should be either no Cortinas left to run. So he'll be safe. He says, and lo and behold, the first up is Koos Swanepoel with the BBC in tow behind him. And he says it was absolutely great fun. But I mean, they rode off to Lotus Cortinas today because there was just no control. And you listen to these amazing stories, so... things like that just don't happen anymore.
And I mean, you guys would also, I take it, you'd also have some, road trips going to races and things like that.
Yes, yeah, we had a few years where, I mean, this is almost sort of that picture perfect story where we'd go karting at Swartkops in the late 80s, and I had Koos as my mechanic, my dad and Koos, and myself and Koos would road trip up, and we'd stay at Bobby Althoff's house. Wow. Now that's a story in itself, because Bob Althoff was famous for obviously his Galaxy and his racing endeavors, but he was also a brilliant pilot. Could do stunts with pilots, all kinds of tricks, and worked at Rand Airport selling, much like you, selling second-hand aeroplanes. But here's the kicker. He would fly home and fly to work. Like you would drive home and drive. So just after the Grasmere turn-off was their farm.
Yeah.
Solitude, I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
The J.R. Althoff, and they had this most amazing farm with a golf course looking runway where you would land.
Wow.
And you would land on the airstrip, taxi up his wider than normal driveway, keys on both sides, and his garage door would be open, in this case the hangar.
Yeah.
His wife would open the hangar. Even if it rained, he wouldn't get a drop of water, and he would ride into the garage with his plane.
Get out
dry, close the garage door, and onto the hangar was the house. And walk into the house. And he would fly to work, fly back, you know.
So you're taking the car or the plane to work this morning?
So we would stay there, you know. And the 1 year we went there, the Galaxy was still there before we sold it to the UK. I mean, years ago, they had a genuine GT40, had a genuine AC Cobra, priceless cars,
Sure.
And unbelievable stories, you know. But the road trips, back to the road trips, between the two of them, Koos probably might have had a slight edge in terms of storytelling. I mean, he would make the longest road trip so short, just by stories. And the one specific, we were in the middle of nowhere in the Free State, and Koos was driving. My dad had an old 7 Series BM and with a little Fender trailer with the go-karts in the back, and he was explaining to us the 64 or 65 Saloon Car Championship with him against Bobby. So the little nimble latest Cortina, quick around the corners, and this massive 7-liter Galaxy barreling down the straight. So certain Goliath. Tracks, proper Goliath story. And certain tracks, the Cortina would be quicker, and certain tracks, the Galaxy would be quicker. But Koos had this knack to, you know, he would tell a story, but it's like you are there. He would paint this perfect picture, every bit of detail, and he gets also involved, you know, in the story emotionally. He actually, he relives the moment, and he's telling us about going down this, I think, Potter's Pass or whatever it is in East London, with a Cortina, when Bobby comes barreling past with his monster Galaxy. He says, and as the Galaxy comes past, he says, the little Cortina just does this. But he lived in the moment, and he actually tugged on the wheel of the BM. And we used both lanes of the N1 and jackknifing with a Fender trailer at the back. I mean, I thought we were dead, you know. So and of course, being the driver that he's managed to save everything, go straight, and there was a moment of silence. And my dad looked at him and he said, "Koos," and he looked at him and he said, "It felt exactly like that." It's amazing. Amazing story. So.
That's freaking awesome.
I actually met Sarah van der Merwe when I was like this big.
Oh yeah.
My dad took me to some other car show. We were still living up in Joburg. And I have somewhere in my archives in my house, I have this postcard of, I think it was a Ford Mondeo.
Oh yeah.
That Sorrel was racing at the time, and he signed it for me. And that was like my prized possession. And then we moved to the UK for however many years we were there. I went to school there, started university there, came back, and now I'm older, I'm driving myself, and we go to watch racing at Killarney, and I go through, and I'm like, Sarah van der Merwe's racing. I'm like, is he still... Never mind, is he still alive? He's still racing.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there, and this red Galaxy comes barreling through turn 3. And as he comes through, you can just smell brake pads for the first 3 or 4 laps. After lap 4, you don't smell the brake pads anymore because they're gone. Yeah. And then, I mean, he just had a way of sitting that car sideways that was... It defied the laws of physics. He's obviously just a much better driver than anyone else that I knew at that stage. And then I started noticing, but there's something odd going on in the cockpit. And I don't know if it was my eyes playing tricks on me or what it was, but I swear he came through turn 3, and I saw him with one hand on the wheel on the other hand pulling down on his helmet with a cigarette in his mouth.
Yeah, he used to do that.
Yeah, he used to. The endurance races, Dion Joubert was saying it's pack of cigarettes and sweets and whatever on the passenger seat, They those guys
the
were
Golf GTI that
Golf GTIs,
and the group ends.
The Mondeo was, if you talk to Sorrel now, it's single-handed the worst car he's ever driven in his life.
Was that the touring car?
Yeah, he absolutely hated that car. So there's a long backstory, but it ended up being the car that was supposedly purchased from the UK was never sent, and it was really a parts car. So it was all the odd bits and pieces. And one of the things that came out was when they tried to order gear ratios for it, and they quoted the gearbox number, and they were going, no, that gearbox doesn't exist. It was the sample box that was never supposed to be in a car, So yeah, it's one car that he didn't like. Yeah, I'm trying to think what he said his favorite car was, because I asked him that we were at his house, and we had a braai at his house, and I think he said it was actually the Escort, because I sort of thought it was the Escort. No, the rally car. The BDA rally car. I think that it's either that or the Audi, but I'm sure he ended up, if he had to nail it down to one, it would have been the Escort.
I want to say, is you told me a story one day, I don't know if it was the Escort or the Audi, where they were doing quite a tight rally stage somewhere here, and then
so this is a second-hand story that I heard from another rally driver. But so it was saying that in the 80s, when there was this one long straight in Lesotho where they used to go up with the rallies. I'm not sure what it's called. It's almost like Suikerbossie, where you go up, but it's this long stretch that you go up, and the one side is down and the other side's mountain. You go up, and he said that. I mean, I think they were driving some other cars. The guy told me the story, and they were doing, let's say, 220 k's an hour. And Sorrel, with that Audi, they were maxing out at 250 with the Group E Audi.
Right.
And it was so quick that the chopper couldn't keep up. So they pulled away from the chopper on a rally stage. The chopper actually lost it.
Lost ground.
So just to give you an idea of how crazy the guys were in those Group E days. I mean, it was...
I think the Quattros at the time was a big thing, was 0 to 100 and 100 to 0 in 5 seconds.
Jeez.
All of that. Going there and stopping again.
Yeah, no, it's mental. I think it was under 3 seconds, 0 to 100.
Yeah.
And they're basically doing that while sat on like a fuel tank. Like, no safety.
Yeah, the safety was...
Sorrel probably one of the call it a sad moment for him was he got invited to do, I think it was the Rally of Portugal. Mm-hmm. So he got to drive proper Audi. He was the works driver here. So got to drive a car with Walter Roll, as his teammate.
Yes.
So they were the Audi team, and he got this sort of ticket to do a proper WRC type race. The problem was it was pace notes. So you had to drive the day before and go make notes, 90 degree, this. And him and his navigator did exactly that. But pace notes, it's an art form of its own, especially if you're not used to it.
Yeah.
Now you've got your own made notes versus the diagram from the organizers. And so Sorrel tells a story. He says they went over a crest at flat out speed, and this guy, the last instruction was whatever flat out. And then he lifted the page to go to the next instruction. And he lifted the page and said, okay, over the crest, still flat out. But he took 2 pages. Oh. So it was over the crest, 90 right. So, and then Sorrel said when he was supposed to go right, they were still getting air. They were going up. They were going up, never mind coming down, So they crashed the car, unfortunately. So just because of taking double pages. So
what I do with Andre is I just point with my hand like this, because otherwise he doesn't listen to me as well. Because I warned him about bumps and he just ignored it.
Our rally sprint pace notes are a bit more elementary.
Yes.
A little improvised.
It's more if in doubt, flat out with...
but he still warned him and he still doesn't listen. He just goes flat out over anything.
How bad can it be? You don't always trust your navigator.
I know some rally drivers who might disagree with you on that one.
Okay. And I think that era of motor racing with those James Hunts, or that type of the
70s and 80s.
Yeah, that's just completely
even the Formula One as well. I mean,
absolutely,
really,
yeah.
Fantastic.
Americans, the NASCAR guys, the Southerners ganging up against the rest of the Americans, so there was this whole Alabama gang.
The big names.
The big names, yeah. And we had superstars, and that's quite sad. You could ask Tanny that bakes biscuits for a life. You ask who started off in a mather.
Everybody knew who Superman was.
He was,
So he would be in the huisgenoot every week.
100%.
He was
And
a
they
celebrity.
know someone that knows absolutely nothing about motor racing knows that that's our guy that races. And we don't have that hero-villain scenario anymore. The Willie Hepburns.
I was about to say, there's that hero-villain thing is quite important because we don't see rivalries like Hunt versus Lauda anymore.
No.
And if something like that does come up, it gets frowned upon, and it's like, no, you guys shouldn't fight. Play nice.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you should be fighting. I mean,
you
guys should
You both want the championship.
You both want the championship. Fight. This is what you're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if it's like if you watch any, I mean, in YouTube and you type in Kyle Busch interviews. I mean, Kyle Busch is known for the worst guy in terms of NASCAR interviews, and he's got this air about him, and he's the way that, and it's actually quite fun to watch. You think you actually want to go, did you really just say that? And I've met him now a few times because he actually races with my son, and he's such a nice guy.
It's just part of his persona.
It's gotten to the point where, I mean, he if he sees me, he goes, doesn't know my name. He goes, Australia. No. And I go, no, South Africa. That. I'm that guy. I'm not that. And we have 20-minute, 30-minute chats, and he'll have to go somewhere, and he'll turn it around, and he'll come back, and he'll first greet me. I mean, it's just crazy, these heroes that do that. But I think what's happened is, what you're saying with a hero and a villain, he's actually from a merchandising point of view, he's really absolutely loved by his fans and absolutely hated by the rest. But
sounds a bit like Max Verstappen.
But the rest watch him also with eagle eyes. Because they want him to say something.
He gets the attention.
And then they can go, oh, did you hear what Carl just said? Or whatever.
I guess it's a bit like Donald Trump. Whether you like him or not, everybody's watching what he's saying.
Watching. But Carl Larson is just a great guy. But Kyle Busch, I mean, people, they come into the shop and they go, oh, Kyle Busch, I don't like him. You know what? He's actually a very cool guy. He's a nice guy, a nice person. And they go, really? They can't believe it. So, but
you obviously raced in an era where there was heroes and villains. Who would have been your arch nemesis?
Let me think.
Well, Formula One first. Who was your kind of Formula One? Were you a fan of?
Well, I was
from the 80s.
I was a Senna guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a Senna guy. Definitely not a Prost guy.
And into the 90s.
I mean, I think it was a natural progression that Schumacher was the guy that I followed. But here's where it gets a bit funny. I've then dwindled off Formula One, so I don't watch it. I'll see in a highlight or read a post. I like Max. I like Max because of Jan Lammers and Jan and Jos race together and all the stories of them. And there's a whole revival in Holland with motor racing. I mean, to the absolute extreme because of one guy. So it just goes to show what an impact he can have. And I like Max. I like his attitude. But as I said, unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be there forever and a day.
But I think he's going to do cool other things,
Yeah, no, he will. He'll be one of those guys that does cool things. But it's still not going to be.
No, it's not the same as.
Not the same as what it was back.
James Hunt and.
back in the day, So I mean, the Las Vegas race. And how true it is, I don't know. Max was apparently saying, his nose was burning because he was smelling weed in the air at the Vegas race. I thought to myself. Coming from Holland, you would think you'd be okay with that. You'd be used to it.
I visited New York in January this year, and I can confirm it's worse walking around in New York than it is in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
At the moment. America, because it's new, people are catching up.
And it's legal most states.
People are catching up now. They are making up for lost time. In kind of Amsterdam, people are kind of, they'll still do it, but it's not new. Yeah, that's the thing.
Where have we gone here? We've gone from motor racing
So
to go. That kind of sums up the 80s of motorsport, eh?
Yeah.
Motorsport and weed. That's
There were some
apparently
stronger drugs in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean the Willie Hepburns with there's so many famous stories, and photos and wipers not working, undoing your belts and hanging out the window with your Sarah and going around Galani, and that just you'll be black flag, license will be taken away.
You'll never race again.
That's not gonna happen today.
That actually reminds me, like, me and you spoke about it quickly, the new Senna series. Like, some of it's good, some of it's a bit funny. But, like, exactly what you say now. I mean, they showed Senna undoing his belts to take off the tape off the radiator because they had a brand new motor in there that they just put in that he wanted to break in properly. So
they had to heat the motor up
had to
and then
heat the
cool it,
motor
so
up
that
properly. Yeah, and with the saying seat of the butt driving or something, how he used to tighten himself so
he wanted to be strapped.
He wanted to be strapped in so hard as possible. So you can feel everything happening in the car.
And Dion Jabay was kind of my age, and he was, Michael Briggs. They were probably 5 years older than myself, and the Kwesi Swanepoels, you talk to someone like Dion. I mean, Tony Verhanna, race group in, and then Friday would something, and he'd be on the dyno the whole Friday night, on his own dyno, tuning his own car. Same with Willie,
he was still. Tony Viana was so sick with cancer when he was still his last races. I mean, he should have probably been in hospital, but he was racing until
absolutely
the very end.
But that whole era, Ben, Morgan Root, those guys would be hell of a fast race drivers. But they'd work on their own cars.
But even more important, not just work on them, they built their own cars.
They built their own cars.
I mean, we had, when Sora was driving the factory, the Audis, and then the kind of factory Fords, the Sapphires with the turbo motors and stuff. But I mean, those were especially the Audis, they were proper factory cars. I mean, they were serious kit. Where those Rothmans Audis were built in PE, eh? Okay.
Yeah, the first generation Audis were imported, but the others were built in PE.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we had some clever guys and some good welders and
But
stuff.
I mean, for me, it was kind of Uncle Ben Morganroot with his 3-rotor. I think he had a 323 Mazda was the 3-rotor motor,
absolutely,
a rotary engine, and then also you had. Obviously, Uncle Willie with his
V8s always
with his V8s,
and
the animal, and then it was just so cool seeing all those different cars, and the racing was surprisingly close.
Yeah,
then really the Audis were kind of in front, but they were very close. I mean, the V8s and the rotary and everything was in there.
Worlds apart, different cars.
The philosophy is so different drivers, different builders.
But within half a second of each other. Yeah, it's crazy.
Super quick.
And somebody a couple of years ago in P, we were chatting about Willie. Because I actually got him down for the last classic race, with the last time he raced the record, and he was starting to, you could see he wasn't quite there, he was battling a bit with his illness. And somebody was mentioned at a PE race that he's more or less the same age as Mario Andretti. Same build, and has also done versatile things. Willie was quite a good drag racer.
Yes.
He built great drag cars, he raced various things. He was good in group production cars, and a little bit of a Mario Andretti thing as well with doing different things. And I can't remember who the group of people was, and somebody just piped up and said, "Yeah, but do you think Mario Andretti will change the Jericho gearbox between two heats?" Because Willie would do that on his own, or the diff, So he would, and he'd never want help. He'd always do everything by himself.
So my dad was about a few years ago. I think it was. Maybe just before COVID, I think, 2019, around about there. So my dad went to Samola Hill Climb. That's before we went. And he was, saw Uncle Willie there with a record, and he was kind of just running around. There was some petrol pipe issue, and he was running around, and Dad asked whether he could help him. He was alone. Just him, in his pit. Yeah. Just like Willie. He was already in his 70s. Just him, no one, not even a friend, no one there. He was running around and whatever. And he told my dad that his transporter, that little, I think one of these Vito little buses or whatever, or transit or whatever, the gearbox broke or the motor, he had to redo the motor before they left. There was some issue, right? So he had to like redo the motor himself at home, hitch the thing, drive down, and basically got here.
Just in time.
Like, just in time. So he was running around, and my dad was up. He was like holding the petrol pipes, and there was something else. So my dad was just helping him hold the stuff, and he kind of got it together and thanked him. And he went up the hill, and he was like, top 8, top 10 time, whatever.
That's the other side.
He's in his 70s. Like, who does that?
But working on your own cars really does, I feel like, give you an element or an edge over other people that is in the racing scene. Because, most of the young guys don't have a mechanical sympathy because they don't know how the mechanics of a kart works, for example. I was actually speaking to Carl Lawrence about this because I asked him when he was overseas, like with Kimi's son driving, obviously Kimi has a lot of money, so he can pay someone to be there. But no, it was Kimi and his son working on their own kart because Kimi probably also believes, like, if you're working on your own kart, you get that mechanical sympathy, you know what wears out, you know where you need to be smoother.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's something you really don't see anymore. Not at all.
I watched an interview with, I think it was Nigel Mansell at one stage, and he also said that the guys that he thinks become the best drivers are the guys who know their car the best.
Yeah.
And, you're never going to know your car more intimately than being elbows deep in it for half your weekend.
Yeah.
But earlier I asked you who your arch rival was. I noticed that you sort of dodged the question.
Evaded the question.
Your biggest competitor.
If there was a driver that you really sort of looked up to as your hero that you had to race against, who would
race against?
Or your toughest competitor?
Your toughest competitor. Your.
It would be different in every form of motorsport. Okay. What I race, So, but just thinking from karting, and then our steps together in karting, and then onto the main circuit is probably Kwesi Swanepoel. So. I was a Senna fan, and his helmet was painted like Prost's helmet, So that
that's right there.
But best of mates, So
so I remember when I was a kid. So you were probably racing then as well. So I was a kid. Those was, say, in the early 90s, not middle. Yeah, must be early 90s. And I remember Kwesi had this little Opel Kadett.
Yes, yeah.
It was a white and green, like a old, like a 70s.
Yes.
I think it's the 70s, yes. Like Opel Kadett, little coupe with a Superboss engine in it.
100%, yeah.
That thing ran sideways like a drift car in most of a clubman's race. But that thing was quick and he could drive it. He was quite young at that stage. He was like we were early 20s or whatever, but 19, he could drive that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you were probably driving at the same time.
Yeah, so I Kwesi started karting before me, and then I started racing main circuit before him with my Opel. And then when he got in mine, we sort of raced a few races together, and then I went over to... We converted our car to a modified saloon. But I don't really think... karting, there was a nemesis always, and national karting. My year was Henny Groenewald was my big... he won the SA Championships in 89. Yeah.
Okay.
And we became good mates. And he's one of the few guys that... I think the most underrated race driver.
Yeah,
he's just
because he's always been around. He's always
just
there,
so
right
good,
there. He's always.
Yeah. I probably shouldn't tell this story, but we went to 1 year. I was up in Durban. This is probably 20 years ago, maybe more. We were at. I stayed with Henny, and we went to the Volrivier. There was some restaurant, new thing, and we had a couple of beers there. And on the way back, we stopped at Midval. I'd never been to Midval racetrack. And just to show me, and there was a guy testing a Formula V. And Henny at that stage raced the Audi AT touring car, the super touring car, the Scanmo yellow with the blue. And he was competitive amongst the factory cars. And we walked up pit lane, and there was a guy in the Formula V, and he sort of noticed Henny, and where do I know you from? And he said, you Henny Groenewald. And he said, listen, don't you want to do me a favor? Do you mind taking my Formula V out for few laps just to see how it goes. Henny was clothed in short pants and pluckies. And he got into the Formula V and he got out and all he gave me is just hold my pluckies because it's not going to work. I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to do this barefoot, And let's say, just for argument's sake, let's say the lap record for ease was a minute. And this guy, Henny pulled away, and this guy is saying, no, he does 1 minute 5 seconds, but he's, the car's got a terrible understeer. And then he came past, and it came past the second time. The guy presses his watch, says, I made a boo and I pressed wrong because it's 59 seconds. So it can't be under the lap record. And then he came past again, and it was 58 seconds. And the guy looked, and the third lap was another 58, but a low 58. Yeah. And the guy said, but this is impossible. This guy's 7 seconds a lap quicker than me in my own car. He's never driven the thing, And then he came into the pits, and the guy said, what's your opinion? He says, no, if you could just get rid of the oversteer, this car would be much better. And this guy's complaining about understeer, So, it's little stories like that that just sticks with me forever, So
it's funny because it also shows that there's, even between drivers who are at that sort of level and competitive and on the edge, there's huge differences in how they drive any particular car. Because when I was with Craig Harper, we were doing that test my ride thing with Mika Salo at Kalani. And Mika went around and he's like, oh no, the car's great, but there's a little bit of a problem with oversteer. And Craig's like, no, it's got a problem with understeer. He's like, no, it's oversteer.
Depends on how you drive it.
Exactly.
Absolutely, yeah.
And but both of them did lap times that were incredibly close to each other. And again, like you say, it's just those guys, they get into a car and they get into it quickly. Craig's been driving that car for years. He built the damn thing.
It's his car, built it around him.
Yeah. He's been driving Kalani for years and years. He's got thousands of laps on that track. Mika Salo turned up on the day,
never seen the
jumped
car,
in the car
track,
and did a 19.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's impressive. And he also got out of the car and said, look, this is the kind of car that, because of the way that it's set up and the balance of it and everything, you need to spend time with it to learn how to get quicker in it. But within 3 or 4 laps, he was smashing times out.
If you talk to anyone in the younger generation and the old production car days, the biggest nemesis was always Kyalami. People would say, you got it the first time, you're 7 seconds off the pace. You're 5 seconds off the pace. By the fourth meeting, you're only 3 seconds off the pace. And it takes you, a year or two just to master Kyalami and all those little tricks and stuff. And then in the early 90s, the super touring cars came out. John McClellan goes out. Lap 4 was the quickest lap time of the weekend of all cars. He's never been around Kyalami. You think to yourself, holy hell, the standard is just completely next level. A good driver is a good driver on any track.
Yeah.
So that is just the case.
One driver that I've also kind of become mates with over the years is Michael Steven.
Yeah. Also a superstar. Yeah.
Superstar, and also drives anything with wheels, right? Yeah. Anything they'll give him the keys to, he will
it's
drive.
It's funny you say that because in the interview with Henry Groenewald, they asked him, who do you think is the best driver in the country other than you? And he says Michael Stevens. So
I had the baptism of fire that in my first national season, which was also my third karting race, my third DD2 race ever, was a national. I was up against Michael Steven at PE at his home track.
Home track, yeah.
But he's such a nice guy. So I know his brother Graham, who does race clubmans with me and also other things, and we now race sim racing with both of them.
Okay.
But the thing is, Michael's my age. We're the same age, but Michael has been karting since he was 5 years old. I started karting when I was 36.
Yeah.
And we were racing DD2 Masters together. Yeah. So the baptism of fire was just, but he was immediately happy to share. He looked at my data and he's like, actually, you're just as quick as I am into these corners, but you brake too early. Like he just looks at the data and immediately knows what I'm doing wrong. Yeah. But he was happy to share it and stuff. But with all real races, there's kind of this age where, you're still a competitor. He's not going to give you everything.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I'll show you the right way.
Yeah.
But they'll never show you all the cards.
Yeah.
Because they're racing against you. It's part of who they are.
Yeah, but it's interesting you slightly go off subject now, but there's a very good example of both of them. Probably, I mean, I want to say less than top 10, but let's for ease, for your viewers that's going to argue this point, but let's say the two of them between Henry Grunewald and Michael Stevens are the top 10 best racers in the country. But both of them are classic examples of they're two nice guys. Two nice people.
They're very nice.
And both of them should be paid works drivers for whatever. Should have had serious drives because they got a natural talent. But they just too nice. And that's where I think, there has to be a percentage of boastfulness, think you're the best, force yourself a little bit.
It's like
off
to be
the track.
an F1 champion, right? You have to be a bit of an arsehole to be an F1 champion.
Yes.
You're not going to become world champion if you're not a little bit of an arsehole.
Yeah.
Everyone. Even
100%.
even the nice guys, even the Vettels, I mean, multi-21, when it comes down to it, will you be the killer?
Yeah.
When it comes down to being a nice guy to my friend or getting the championship, all the world champions, they won't think twice.
Yeah.
They will make that killer move.
100%.
I mean, Michael was in the. You can ask Jonathan Peters. Michael can get spicy at times on the karting track.
Correct, yeah, but I'm saying, that they didn't push the envelope, knock on sponsors' doors. I am the best. And I think you need a bit of that, the abrupt. Call it attitude, and
arrogant almost.
And my dear Sarel was brilliant at that, So I mean,
he did not have a confidence problem.
Not at all. I mean, for you to race for VW and 3 rallies in a row, your Golf's engine breaks, mechanical issue, and the 4th rally, you're a Volkswagen works driver. To stick on the back of your car, I'd rather play golf than drive one. That's brave. That's brave. And he did it. I mean, that's a fact, So
if you are not Supervan, that would be a career-limiting move.
you get fired,
But if you are Supervan,
you can get away with it. You can get away with it.
Oh my word. But Michael was also, the other thing about Michael's also, when he raced the production cars, the Audis, he was... he was also the team manager.
Right.
He also developed the cars and built the cars.
Absolutely.
So he developed the cars for the
brilliant.
team, and then he also raced, and he's an engineer as well.
Yeah.
So even with the sim racing, he built his own sim stuff.
Oh, really?
He designed his own wheel. Force feedback wheel, light cell pedals. He built it himself.
I still remember racing with him on the sim with Stewie White and Robbie or whatever, and he was talking about this. I'm like, who's this Michael guy and why is he doing this? Like, what is he doing? And
because he can.
And when I started hearing you guys talking, I'm like, okay, this makes more sense. This guy's not just doing this as a hobby.
No, but it's just the what I realized in that year in 2019. I was very serious about my karting. My first national season ever. I think I came 7th or something, and Michael was the champion. But just like I said, he's been doing it since 5 years old. I've been doing it for a year. But his feel for tires and for prep and stuff, we would we've got 2 laps to warm up the tires, and you kind of hope. It would take him half a lap, and his tire would be exactly the right place.
Yeah.
So we would do qualifying, and he would be more than a second quicker than the second quickest guy, because his tires was in the exact right window. We had 2 lap qualies as well.
Right, yeah.
His lap would be a flying lap, and it would just be in the race, the pace is much closer.
Yeah.
But in quali, because he's got, I still don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
And to get that is something that you need to have natural ability, but you also need to have the experience of.
Yeah.
You have to have done it a few times before, and then I just realized the difference between being okay or pretty good or whatever you want to call it to being
great
champion.
Yeah.
It looks this close.
But it's not obtainable.
But in the 100-meter final, this also looks close.
Yeah,
but that's
exactly.
the difference between first and fourth.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of karting and stuff, I want to kind of get to this before we run out of time with Gunter. I think for the YouTube audience, you can see what's on the table and think we've been torturing people here at Gunter's place, but it kind of leads us into...
Only the arm left, the rest is gone.
It kind of leads us into the thing of as a parent, if you're a parent, you want your lighty to go race karting and...
Or your daughter.
And they look up to the current heroes, which is like a Norris or a Leclerc or whatever, and basically what those guys do are they push in money. So they're not worried about what they're pushing, they just push in whatever. So Leclerc has, let's say, the cards that he's got the cool DD2 cards or whatever, own brand of cards, but all of them also have their own kart in race suits. And now the kids are like, okay, cool, but I've got this cool kart in race suit and whatever. Now they get an opportunity, since they've got a good karter, to jump into, let's say, the GR86s with that GR program that GR is running, or the natural progression seems to be like either a one-seater or a GTI challenge. And they tend to stick with their karting suit, since their hero is Leclerc, and go racing on the main circuit. And
it looks cool.
Because it looks cool. I don't, it does really look cool. But as Gunter has told us previously, and I would like to,
up from a safety perspective.
Yeah, how Gunter? Don't you mind telling the people how it sticks up safety wise?
Yeah, look, the problem is there's a percentage of uninformed, because sometimes those karting suits cost big money, 10, 12, 15,000 rand.
Yeah.
And they don't know, the back of the suit's got a tag on and it says FIA somewhere in the tag, but there's a part in front that says CRK, which is karting regulated. And all karting suits are made of either nylon or polyester.
Yeah.
And you are literally way better off.
Which is the same stuff that are basically a ShopRite
plastic
packet is made of.
So although the suits look very pretty, they offer zero protection in fire. I mean, and this is where also, a kart petrol tank sits between your legs, but there's no fire hazard, strange. But the whole idea of a karting suit, it's the abrasive factor. When you fall out the kart and roll down the tar track, the nylon and the polyester is really strong. But in terms of a fire, it's a major issue. So, I've jokingly said I've seen it happen, and the organisers don't always know what to check for. Don't always check race gear as they do overseas. I mean, overseas they check your socks and your everything gets checked. And if you're racing with a karting suit, you are literally way better off in a jeans and t-shirt. You're much safer. If you've got a cotton t-shirt on, you've got a pair of jeans on, you're safer.
Actually better off wearing just your pair of boxer shorts.
Or that, yeah. Whereas the karting suit it literally fuels the fire, so to speak. So I did a test, with COVID. We had time on our hands, and I took a piece of flame-resistant race suit fabric, a 2-layer with a liner on the inside, and I made a sleeve, and we took a sanitizer bottle full of petrol, because obviously the fabric doesn't burn, and we gave it 30 squirts of petrol and set my arm alight. My son did it with great pleasure. But and every time the fuel would burn, and I've got videos of it, and would evaporate. And we actually did the test 3 times, and I never felt the heat
with that actual
sleeve. And it was an interesting test. Barring keeping in mind that the race suit can't also put a fire out. People have this idea that you're okay if you're in a fire. You're definitely not okay.
Yeah.
There's no oxygen. So
you need to get out of the fire.
You need to get out the fire.
But at least you won't burn while you're in it.
You won't. And the fabric, what it does, as soon as you're in oxygen, other than normal fabric, it actually self-extinguishes. So you want to just get away from the fire.
Yeah.
Now, we did the same test with the karting sleeve, which is also 2 layers of fabric, obviously not using my arm.
Similar. Both are orange.
Both are orange, and both have a liner. And the mannequin's arm, we did one test, and we initially started out just with 15 squirts to see what's going to happen, and we had to run around looking for water.
Yeah.
And this stuff drips like as I said, like molten lava.
It's like napalm. So it's plastic that drops from there.
Yeah.
For the listeners listening to this on Spotify and not seeing this on YouTube, the fireproof suit looks like brand new. I mean, that you could wear that. That looks brand new. The karting suit the karting suit looks like it's been through hell, and the mannequin's arm has been there with it. And it is, like you say, I mean, it's like a plastic sort of gunge, and if you look there, you can actually see it's burnt onto the arm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because
It is
drips onto...
Imagine you've got a checkers packet, and you put it on your arm, and you set it alight. Right?
It glues itself
That's
to
exactly,
you
it burns
and
into
then
you.
burns.
It's plastic that molds into you.
The easiest way to explain that for people not looking at it through YouTube words is imagine Roman Grosjean's face after being alight and Niki Lauda's face after being alight.
Yeah,
That's the difference. That's the exact difference.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was.
So I mean, motorsport it's that old thing. If you go to any race meeting, they're always on the little ticket that you buy will say motor racing is dangerous, and you'll have a little disclaimer or whatever.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we can argue, yes, it's safer than XYZ, but it is a dangerous thing. It is a whole lot of people,
things go wrong,
often with lots of testosterone and anger issues and emotions and what have you, that is going around at very high speeds. And in general, statistically, you are set, but if things do go wrong, things sometimes go wrong in a big way. So you'd rather want to not add to your worries.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned something quite worrying earlier when we were just chatting, that guys go to buy some cheap component like a electrical switch or whatever from Chinatown, and they walk into the shop and there hangs a Sparko suit. And it looks like a Sparko
Which should
suit.
be a 30,000 rand suit.
Yeah, and
But it's $800.
It's $800, yeah.
And it looks like a Sparko suit. It smells like a Sparko suit. And they buy this thing for $800. But that is the potential result.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It's very easy to forget that this is not a fashion statement. It's a piece of safety equipment.
Yeah.
Surviving trumps looking cool. Just remember that, folks.
Yeah. No, it's worrying because the problem is sooner or later something will go wrong. Something's going to go wrong, and the repercussions of that is going to be big. We're going to end up with our annual portion of our medical aid for a racing license is going to go through the roof.
Yeah, it would have to.
So it's something that I know they are addressing it. I have sent them, the various powers videos of this, and the guys are taking it serious. But it's so tricky because back to things being different in South Africa, you end up with. You go to, again, I keep on going back to America, and only because I go there often, a guy that's...
You can see the comparison between the two.
Yeah, a guy that does scrutineering, is a well-paid guy, and he, everyone's scared of the guy, and he goes through everything with a...
And he's an expert.
He's an expert in his field. He checks your tags on your balaclava and your race car. He checks everything.
And even without checking the tag, he can feel it's the real thing or not.
Now, club racing, it's a thankless job being a scrutineer. You spend the whole blooming day in the sun. You get a hamburger and a Coke, and then you
get some people shouting at you because
you get some people shouting at you. You've maybe, as a scrutineer, had a really bad week, and now you maybe take it out on the competitor. The competitor throws his toys out the cot and says, 4 races in a row, my car was fine. Now there's 4 faults. The famous story.
You're being unfair.
You're being unfair. And because of a rotational basis, and it's not always the same guys, I still think that each region should have a dedicated, call it a chief scrutineer or a main guy, that then, comes to me, spends a couple of days here, you train him or train them, and then they go and train the other scrutineers. It's something that
some standardization almost,
absolutely, that has to be.
Because the one guy's like, oh yeah, it looks fine, you've got a suit on. And the other guys, oh no, let me see the date, let me see the...
Yeah, the seat belts was a big thing at one stage with the hologram and the dates. There was a window where we still don't know who it is, but somebody was printing new labels for seat belts, so these things happen, you know. So
that's a
serious offence, you know.
Seatbelts, recreated seatbelts is something quite scary for me because there's quite a
and steering wheels and seats. There's some scary stuff.
But I mean, there's with the seat belts, with the fakes. I've seen like this Takata or whatever fakes, but they've got the hologram. They've got everything. If you're just looking at that, you won't know by looking at.
If you haven't seen one before, you'll think, oh, it's got a stamp on it.
The weaving.
Exactly.
You know, it's all the little details.
And the stitching, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, a normal scrutineer won't look at that.
I wouldn't know what the stitching should look like.
Yeah. No, because I was looking at safety belts at one stage, and I thought, but this has the FIA stamp.
It looked like a bargain for the Takatas.
Yes, you remember, because I was like, it's the FIA stamp, it's everything, and then I looked closer and I'm like, no, wait. Something doesn't seem right here. And then I realized, so then I went on like, I think I did like half a day of research where I looked at like, okay, so this is how the stitching should look. This is how this one looks.
So you can go train the other scrutineers.
Yeah, I can go train. Hey, Kalani, if you need help.
But you mentioned stuff like the date stamps on seatbelts, and obviously when the thing goes out of date, you have to replace them, etc., etc. I know that there's also other safety stuff that people aren't generally aware of, like the fact that if you drop or knock a helmet, for example, you technically should replace it because a lot of helmets have internal structures that are designed to absorb impact and they break down, so they don't offer the same protection the second time around.
Yeah,
is there other stuff like that people actually should know about?
The biggest thing is actually the seatbelts. You know, when you're in a proper accident, when you have a serious knock, I mean, if the right belts gives 1 inch give for every foot of belt. Oh, wow. If the belt didn't give, you'd break both your collarbones. I mean, in a serious impact. There has to be some form. The energy has to be absorbed. So you're going to go a little bit forward.
But then it stretches.
It stretches.
And then it doesn't do it again.
Done. That's it. Then it snaps, you know. So, again, go back to America. The marshals all have a knife, and they'll actually cut the buckle off of the belt. So as soon as there's a serious accident, the guys out the car, they'll remove the buckle. Yeah, they'll cut out the center buckle. That's one way of obviously, making the call. Now the problem comes in. I see a guy have an accident, and then I go.
You see the same belts again.
I said, you know what? I'm not saying this, but you should actually, with that accident you've hit the wall at whatever, you should actually replace your belts. But now I'm the one guy.
To make money,
I happen to be the guy selling the belts, But just because I'm selling it, I actually know all the pitfalls in detail, So it's a very difficult scenario, So, but that's the joys of business.
And another part someone might think you are upselling them on is actually these normal neck braces. Because when you, even on a track day, when you, an accident with a helmet on, with no neck brace, that could become quite a dangerous story as well, eh?
Yeah. And again, the foam collar neck brace, it's nowhere in the world is it really allowed. Is it any good? It's better than nothing. But in theory, you should have a Hans device. But nobody wants to spend 8,000 or 10,000 rand on a Hans device.
Yeah, and then you have to have a helmet that can take a Hans device, which is another 10, 12 grand.
Well, they're getting clever now. The new Hans devices actually come with the clips separate, so you can put it in any helmet. They've changed that.
That's cool.
But I mean, like with my son's racing, it's very, very fast and it's very dangerous, So you end up having to have what's not enforced, where they do give you the options, you still opt for the better version, So you end up with a carbon helmet and a carbon brace.
You don't want to stretch it. You don't maybe it's okay.
If something goes wrong and he gets hurt, and or he gets fatal injury, you're going to go, shit, if I had bought
I bought a newer helmet?
Better helmet, So they got a 2-year lifespan on helmets.
Yeah. Wow.
So there's a lot of things there. I mean, it's quite sad because I make all this race gear, but America has their own set of rules, the SFI, which is the opposite to the FIA. So everything's got to be SFI approved, which our stuff, we don't make stuff for American market. So I've got to go and buy everything, So and you got to update stuff, and because they race so often, they got to have 2 or 3 suits, and
Yeah.
4 pairs of gloves, and 2 helmets, and underwear, and balaclavas, and carbon braces. So
It's a 100 grand story right there.
crazy, or more. Yeah,
That's a lot more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, so but that's the whole story. $10 head, $10 helmet. So But 33 years later, I'm also tired of if the guy really wants to buy whatever helmet and the rules allow it, I can try and tell him what the pitfalls are, and make a suggestion.
Tell him what the risk is, but he needs to make up his mind.
He needs to make up his mind. I'm not going to lie awake at night anymore. I can't. Got to worry about everyone.
Yeah.
So,
No,
He knows the risks if he decides to take it.
absolutely, yeah.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
But when in doubt, like my dad always says, you pay for a helmet what you think your head is worth. So think about that for a second before you buy a helmet.
that's very true. Yeah.
Yeah. Safety.
And the same with all other gear, buy the best that you can afford to buy.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite. You can imagine. Just thinking with people that come in, we have all walks of life, from a 4-year-old kid that is karting to a woman that weighs 300 kilograms that does motor racing. So there's all shapes and sizes. That makes the suit manufacturing part so interesting.
Yeah.
But my favorite story is because most race suits in South Africa, it's level 1 or a level 2, so it's a single layer or a 2 layer. The difference in price is probably a 50% additional cost, but in a scenario when you need it, that level 2 is 4 times as good. It's would be the ideal thing to go for. But you get people that come in and they go, I don't know, for what I do, I need a level 1. What do you do that you need? No, the thing is my car, it's an Anglia. Yeah? No, but it's slow. So it's fine. When I get a fast car, then I'll get a level 2. And the fuel tank, that's 50 liters. So the same size fuel tank as the fast car.
The fast cars burn quicker.
Yeah, there's
And the fast car, probably if it's that fast, probably has like a proper fuel cell and something in it.
and fittings, whereas you got an old copper line in an Anglia or something.
we
Chances
go.
of it burning is quite good.
And the funny part is, I've got a level 1 suit that I got from the solo race and stuff. But we had the
In case of
fireproof
suntan or
but we had the fireproof underwear.
Underwear, okay.
Yeah.
But if you actually compare buying the fireproof underwear
It's
and a
cheaper just
level
buying
1
a
suit,
suit
it's just
level 2.
cheaper to buy a level 2 suit.
100%, yeah.
So it's actually stupid. So anyways.
But yeah, each one to the own. I'd much rather have a guy in a level 1 suit than in a karting
suit, yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you had someone walk in the door and they said, listen, I'm trying to turn my car into not necessarily a racing car, but a track day car that I can enjoy on the road, but also take on track days, safety-wise, what would be the go-to things that you would say they have to have?
If it's going to be used as a daily car as well.
Yeah.
I think I don't know what the track day rules are. Obviously a helmet, pair of gloves is always a good idea. And then just get yourself an entry-level suit when things do go wrong, So, and then the next step is obviously harness, and from there race seat, So, but then it becomes, it gets to that point where this is now an uncomfortable road car,
And if you, also almost like a karting suit is if you're going to be using your car on the road without a helmet, do not put a full roll cage in
Absolutely,
if you aren't going to be wearing a helmet with it, because you will crack your skull on that roll cage.
It hurts,
no, it's much more dangerous
Absolutely,
if you bump and you hit your head on that roll cage. So unless you design it to be away from your head and stuff, but
isn't it? I think if you put a roll cage in a car, it's no longer roadworthy.
technically not roadworthy anymore.
It is. It
is, but
you
that's
won't get it through.
It's a contentious point from a common sense point of view. But yes, you're not. Even if you drive with a helmet, you're actually not. It's not road legal anymore because you've technically, if you've modified your car in any way, it's not road legal anymore.
Quite right, yeah. And always a good thing is almost in any car, a classic car especially, is have a fire extinguisher in the car somewhere.
Yes.
So that's probably sort of the first thing you would want to do.
It's actually not a bad idea almost in any car.
Yeah.
Because you never know when stuff goes
in
on.
motorsport, the racing guys I think they've ruled out the little fire stick now, the fire striker. But it's such a small, light thing. You can throw it in your cable and it's very, very effective. It's a one-use thing. But when they launched the product, we saw them. It work. It's brilliant. It works well. So
I used to have
if
one
you
of
don't,
those.
if you don't have space for it, or just have something in your car.
Yeah.
So, that is a good idea.
That's some good top tips there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gunter, once again, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having us in your shop.
Thank you for having me.
I think we're going to be back here for quite a lot of.
I've been
bits
back.
and
I've
pieces.
been here a few times, especially with the garage sale. I'd come buy just a small part every time.
Sometimes you've got the guys going to the, in the holiday times, going to the mall and dropping their wives off there, and this is the kind of place where ladies, where you can come and drop your husband off.
We'll take care of him.
To come and do shopping here. I've spent hours of my life here just looking at cool racing things. Always buying something of some description, but I've looked at a lot of stuff as well. It's always fun to come here.
Or just talking to you for your knowledge as well.
It's always, I love it.
Yeah.
I love waffling.
There you go.
Nice.
Cool, but we'll be back again at some point, I'm sure. And hopefully we'll bump into each other at the track. And
until then, we will stay
classy, San
classy.
Diego. Cool.
we really should think of
Thanks,
another way
man.
to sign off the show.
No.